So before we get started with the actual workout, we're going to start with the warm-up. Today, I'm going to choose the Airdyne as a piece of equipment. Why I like the Airdyne is it's really good for getting your heart rate up, but also it's low impact. So it's something we can do just to get the blood pumping. I usually do this for 3 to 5 minutes before working out. After our 3 to 5 minutes of cardio, we're going to work on releasing some trigger points. I like to do localized or acute trigger point releasing or self-myofascial release. We're going to start with just an easy lacrosse ball. Because we're doing an upper body workout that's focusing a lot on pushing and pulling, I'm going to work a lot on my pec major, but also my scap in the back. So to work on my pec, I'm going to do about 20 to 30 seconds. I'm going to open my arm up. I'm going to find a nice wall space, and I'm just going to work that ball into the muscle, just searching for any trigger points, any tightness from my last workout, anything that's been bothering me. So after 20 to 30 seconds, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Then I'm going to progress to my scapula. For your scapula, all I'm simply going to do is I'm going to put the ball behind me. I'm going to find behind my shoulder blade. If I need to lower the ball, I'm going to roll forward. I can take my arm across my chest to open up the muscle fascia. I'm just going to use my legs to move the ball around and find some stiff points. This is going to be really important when we start benching, and we need to load all that weight in our back at the bottom. So after 20 to 30 seconds, I'm going to switch sides. Lean forward to get it right behind my scapula. And continue. You don't want to do more than 20 to 30 seconds because the pain response, because this is slightly uncomfortable, can actually dull our nervous system, and we're not going to get the same strength output. So now that we're done with this, let's go back by the weights. Alright, now that we have our muscles warmed up and loosened up, I'm going to do some targeted muscle activation. So I'm going to work with my scapula on a protraction and a retraction. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get into a nice quadruple stance, knees under my hips, hands under my shoulders. I'm going to push my shoulder blades towards the ceiling. I'm going to hold that for 2 to 3 seconds. I'm going to retract them together, pull my chest down to the ground. I'm going to do this about 10 times each, just to make sure my scapula warmed up before I go benching. With some over and backs. Why I like over and backs is because your shoulder is a ball and socket joint. You have a lot of rotation through it, and it's important to mobilize that entire capsule. So I'm going to take a band. I'm in a nice comfortable tension. I'm going to start at my hips, I'm going to open my head, nice tight core. I'm going to stretch it apart, go down, touch my tailbone, back over. I'm going to do 10 repetitions of this just to make sure my shoulders are nice and warmed up. One thing I'll notice with athletes, if you grab the band too far together and you try and pull it over your head, you're going to see one side go before the other. That's a big indicator that we want to take our hands a little farther apart, get some less tension in there, and over time, you'll build strength. When we're done with that, we're going to do a band pull apart, just so our rear delt muscles are firing. So I'm going to take the band out, called a shoulder width grip, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the band and I'm going to pull it apart across my chest. 10 more times. Once I've done 10 of those, I'm just going to mount it over here onto the wall using an X mount. I'm going to use this to make sure all my back muscles are firing properly, and I'm going to get some face pulls. I'm going to stand with my feet shoulder width apart. Just pull my hands up towards my face. Make sure I'm getting good scapular retraction with some anal resistance. And I got 10 more. This is really going to help with the eccentric phase of our bench press today. Our back is finally warmed up. We're going to put a little more stress on our chest. So I'm going to take this band, I'm going to stretch it around behind my back. We're going to do some banded push-ups. So I'm going to assume a normal push-up position. Hands under my shoulders, so they're slightly wider, feet together. I'm going to go down to the ground, nice and explosive. the band's just gonna add a little extra resistance. So now we're working on warming up the contraction phase of our bench press. Good. I got 10 of these. And then we're almost ready to start benching. Before we start benching, we're going to warm up on our explosiveness a little bit. Because we're doing higher weight today, because we're so far into our mesocycle, and we need to make sure we're using proper periodization, we're going to do a lot of sets of 6 and 4, and even down to 2 when we get to some reverse banded exercises. So to warm up for my chest press, I'm going to have a partner to catch the ball. I'm going to take a medicine ball, and lie this flat on the ground. My partner's going to catch it and drop it back to me after I throw it up in the air, so I'm going to work on my explosiveness. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we're going to do 4 sets of 6 repetitions, taking about 45 seconds in between each set. If you are doing this workout with a partner, it takes about that long, so just feel free to switch with your partner and switch back until you both complete 4 sets. Now that we're fully warmed up, it's time to hit the bench press. With the bench press, I'm going to be doing this for an athlete whose max, 1 rep max is going to be about 225 pounds. We're going to start with 5 sets of 5 reps, so we're going to do about 85% of their 1 rep max. It's about 190, the closest we're going to get is 185. Make sure that you always have a spotter and clips on the bar whenever you're demonstrating the bench press. So we're going to make sure we keep our feet flat on the ground. My head's going to be back in the spine in neutral position. I'm going to take my arms up from about a 90 degree elbow bend. I'm going to start with the bar over my eyes. Ready? 1, 2, 3. So that was a really great rate of reserve effort. I don't think I could have done, 1 more rep, so I really like to keep my intensity on high strength days in that. So I got 1 set down. I'm going to take about 60 to 90 seconds until I feel fully recovered to make sure I can get the next 5 reps. After we completed our 5 sets of the bench press, we're going to move on to our 2 sets of our max. So, because we said our 1 rep max was 225 pounds, we're going to use a band actually to assist. So the nice thing about using this band is that it's actually going to help me when I try and contract. So I'm going to get a nice little push, so I'm actually doing less than my 1 rep max, although that's what's on the bar. And even the farther I get down to my eccentric phase, I'm really going to stretch that band. It's going to help me with the loading and the eccentric. Then as I push up, it's going to help a little less, so I'm going to have to contract harder. But that's the whole point of trying to make our muscles work. So again, I'm using a spotter, I have my clips on. I have a well-established band, equal tension on each side. So we're just going to do 2 reps. Make sure your spotter knows that when you're going close to your max, make sure your spotter always has their hands on the bar. Some days we're stronger than others, so just in case you can't get it up, make sure your spotter's ready. So same thing, I'm just going to have my feet firmly planted, shoulders back, take my arms down to 90 degrees, and my thumbs on. All right, I got 3, 2, 1. One. After 2 to 3 minutes of rest after our last bench press, we're going to work into some pulling exercises now that the pushing is done. So one thing, because we're really focusing on strength today, I added a little extra weight with the vest for our pull-ups. So with our pull-ups, we're going to go for max reps. It's a great way, if you're an athlete, you can always push yourself progressively by trying to get more reps, adding more weight. It's a good way to make your body adapt. So for a pull-up, we're just going to start, hands a little wider than shoulder width. I'm going to start from the bottom, no momentum. But we're just going to drive our elbows down into the floor. Just going to do as many as we can. Try not to use your legs as much as possible. We're here to make it hard on our muscles. Can't do any pull-ups. In that case, we wouldn't use a vest. But one thing I like to do is actually bring the bench a little closer. Now, I can use it as an assist. So I'm just going to have my feet on the bench. I can get almost a little push. Good, I can start working that range of motion. And eventually along the way, we'll develop a pull-up. So we're going to do 3 sets, as many pull-ups as you can. Take about 45 seconds in between. And then we're going to move on to our next exercise. Execute the roll. I'm going to drop down into a split stance. My arm that's grabbing the bar is going to be the same leg that's back. I'm just going to grab the bar. I'm going to start generating that elbow up. Driving it back. Make sure I work my shoulder blade. I got 8 on each side. Good. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to step over the bar. I'm going to switch sides, switch legs. Breathe. Good. In between sets, I'm going to take about 60 seconds max, no more, no less. I want to keep my heart rate going. And then we're actually going to be into our last exercise. We're going to work some arms. For our final set of upper body exercises, we're actually going to utilize the TRX straps. I like these because you can adjust it to an individual strength just by moving your feet around, which we'll see. But also it adds a little imbalance and core work into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to superset 2 arm exercises, and we're going to see how many times we can get through 15 reps on each exercise in a 5-minute interval. This is a great way to get strength, but now we're starting to push our cardio a little more during our workout. So I'm going to first start with the TRX tricep extension. So I'm going to hands just at eye level out in front of me. I'm going to bend my elbows, pointing them down towards the floor. Bring my eyebrows to my knuckles. And then I'm just going to extend my arms. Perform the tricep extension. If that's too hard, feel free to move your feet up. This will take a little bit of weight off. But if it's too easy, if I'm on the TRX, I can move my feet back. Increase the difficulty, or as the workout progresses throughout 5 minutes, I can walk my feet up to keep completing my reps. So we're going to superset that with the bicep curl. I'm just going to spin the bands. I'm going to lean back. Nice straight arms. I'm just going to try and curl by putting my elbow straight in front of me. Bring the handles to my eyebrows. I got 15 of these. Same thing, if I want to make it a little harder, I'm just going to walk down, put some more weight in there. More tension. So like I said, we're going to do as many sets, 15 of the tricep extension, 15 of the bicep curl, and see how many we can get in 5 minutes. As we come back to this later in our cycle, we can look back and say, hey, last time I only got 8 sets of each, so I'm going to go for 9 today. A great way that we can measure progression. So I'm going to get ready, we can start the clock. We got 3, 2, 1. After our strength work, we're going to take some time and transition our body just to put the blood flow in the right areas before we try and get our legs cranking in this workout. So we're going to do a dynamic warm-up that's made for speed work. So I'm going to take you through these exercises one at a time, and I'm going to demonstrate over about 5 yards, but we're going to extend this during our exercise for up to 20 yards per exercise. This exercise we're going to do is a walking knee hug. So all I'm going to do is start with my feet hip-width apart. I'm going to drag my knee up. I'm going to use some balance here. Just get a nice walking knee hug. I'm pulling the knee up, getting a little extra stretch through that glute muscle. I'm going to continue until I reach the 20 yard. Once we get down to the other side, we're going to start with the toe up, toe touch. I'm going to add an extra arm circle in here just to work on our shoulder rotation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step, I'm going to plant my heel, keeping my toe up off the ground. I'm going to hip hinge with an arm circle, just get a nice hamstring stretch. I'm going to alternate until I get down to the other side. The next exercise is going to be a walking quad stretch with a reach and an ankle extension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant one foot, I'm going to grab that ankle, I'm going to reach up into the air, extend through the other planted foot, and switch. Make sure to take this nice and slow. We're just trying to get our muscles moving, get our brains thinking, until we get down to the other side. Good, we're almost there. It's time to pick things up. So we're going to start off with just 20 yards of high knees. So I'm going to start from a split stance, right foot forward, left hand forward. I'm just going to start driving my knees. It's all about how many repetitions, not how fast I get down. Good. I'm going to do 20 yards of that. I'm going to turn around, straight into some bucket. Nice and easy. It's all about quick foot speed. I'm going to keep those arms moving. We're going to transition into an A-skip then. My A-skip, all I'm going to do is a skipping motion. I'm going to drive my foot up, keeping my toe pointed up towards the ceiling, nice 90 degrees. I'm going to skip and switch. But only 2 more to go. So we're going to go into a B-skip. I'm going to start with that natural knee drive. I'm going to extend my foot out, drive my toe back. So that's going to look like Initiating that toe drive is really big for getting maximum speed. So on our last one, basketball players are always good at this. It's going to be a power skip. Just like you're doing a layup, I'm going to skip, drive opposite arm, opposite knee, get as much height as I can under. I'm going to switch. Now that we're done with that, we're ready to hit our speed work. Now that our second dynamic warm-up's done, we're going to start into our speed work. So we're going to start with a prowler spread. I really like these. It's a ton of resistance. It really makes you drive your legs. But I also like that we can stack weights on it. Here, 5 weeks in, we're only going to do 90 pounds or 2 45-pound plates. Later on, we're going to just keep stacking them and keep working that acceleration and that speed. So I'm going to start in just a nice natural sprint position. Arms locked in front of me. I know they're tired from benching. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it from here, diagonally across the gym. We're going to take about 40 seconds. We're going to bring it back. And then we're going to give it about 2 to 3 minutes before we get into our next exercise. So I'm going to get down to my starting position. I have 3, 2, 1. Finally, on to our last exercise of the workout. We're going to finish up our speed training with some drop sprints. So why I really like drop sprints, especially for basketball, is because you have to move your feet a lot before you can get to where you want to go, which is forward. So how I'm going to do a drop sprint, I'm going to start with my feet, both platforms. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to drop down to a nice squat. That's part 1. Second part is I got to switch my feet into a sprint stance, and then I'm going to take off. We're going to cover about 20 yards during our sprint. I'm going to pull up where I run into the mirrors on the other side of the room. And then I'm just going to take about 40 seconds, nice slow walk back with about 10 seconds headed onto it. I'm going to go. One thing I want to make sure is the first time I'm going to drop down, my right foot's going to come forward. Second time I'm going to drop down, I'm going to change it up on my body. Make sure I'm training the other side and my left foot comes forward. I'm going to start with my left just to make sure I'm stronger on that side. So I got 3, 2, 1, begin. Now that we're done with our speed work, it's time to transition into the cool down. In the warm-up, we did some self-myofascial release, but now what we're going to work on is a globalized instead of a localized method. So I'm going to use a foam roller for this. I'm going to go through my major muscle groups and just make sure I give each one about 30 seconds of work. That's going to be really good for moving fluid through our venous system as well as the lymphatic system and breaking down some nasty knots that may come up. So to work on my pec, I'm going to take the foam roller. I'm going to put about 45 degrees. I'm going to open my arm. and I'm just gonna roll out. So I'm gonna lay on the floor. I'm gonna do about 30 seconds. When I'm done with the pack, I'm gonna move on to our lat. Our lat's gonna start at the crease where where our armpit starts and down our back. So I'm gonna do that on both sides. I'm gonna start by putting the foam roller right in that crease. I'm lay on my side. I'm just gonna go over, making sure I'm putting as much pressure on the muscle with my body as I can. To work on my traps a little bit and my spinal erectors, I'm going to place the foam roller behind me. I'm going to make sure to stay out of the curve of my low back and far away from where my neck is. So I'm going to use my hips, I'm going to put more pressure on my back, I'm going to push and pull through my heels, just work on any tight muscles that are in there. The next part. So I'm just going to move down my posterior chain at this point. I'm going to start with my glute. I'm going to turn towards the camera. I'm going to put my right hand back, stack that right ankle on my left knee. I'm just going to push and pull, making sure my left glute is off the foam roller so I can put as much pressure as possible on my right glute. I'm going to do this for 20 to 30 seconds and then I'm going to switch. While you're doing this, make sure to keep good sympathetic breathing and nice and relaxed, although it can be painful sometimes. You still got to breathe it down and let our body return to its equilibrium. So after that, I'm just going to transition down onto my hamstring. So I'm just going to work the back of my leg. If you don't feel much with this, sometimes what I'll do is I'll take that opposite leg off. I'm just going to cross it over, get a little more pressure and body weight onto that hamstring. 20 to 30 seconds. I'm going to switch. For 20 to 30 seconds, I'm going to stay on the same leg. I'm going to transition down, making sure I get the top of that calf behind the knee. Our muscles back there. Good. If it's too much, then you can just put that foot back down. Good. I'm going to work that gastroc. 20 to 30 seconds. Move down to my soleus. Same thing if I want more pressure. I'm just going to put my foot on top. When I'm done with that side. Good. The last major muscle I want to get to when we foam roll is going to be our quadriceps. So for my quadriceps, I'm going to do one leg at a time. I'm going to work from my hip down to just above my kneecap. So I'm covering about 6 to 12 inches of total area through this motion and all the motions. And it's 20 to 30 seconds of breaking it down. Sometimes if you just tilt slightly onto that leg, you work the outside of your quad, a lot of tightness in there. Once we've hit all our muscle groups, then we're going to transition into our biphasic stretch. Settle into a half kneeling position here for our first dynamic, or I should say biphasic stretch. So biphasic stretching is a principle where we use a dynamic stretch followed by a static stretch. So I'm going to take my stretch to its end range of motion. I'm going to oscillate about 1 to 3 inches for 30 seconds, and then I'm going to hold for 30 seconds and then switch side because some of these are unilateral. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to use a door frame here. I'm not going to keep my arm at 90 degrees. I'm actually going to open up to 120 so I can open up my pec a little more. So I got 90. I'm going to put that up. I'm just going to bring my knee over my toe here. Just get a nice stretch. Let the frame of the door. Keep that elbow in a stable position. After 30 seconds of oscillating, I'm just going to come forward. Nice static stretch. You know, I'm keeping just a nice relaxed posture, breathing and letting my body cool down properly. After 30 seconds, then I'm going to switch sides and then we can move on. Second biphasic stretch is going to work on our lats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both my hands and put it straight overhead and I'm going to bend in a nice hip hinge. All I'm going to do is I'm going to get down, I'm going to oscillate, I'm going to step forward a little, get a little more stretch. You know, I'm just going to oscillate a couple inches around that end range of motion. I like this. It keeps it dynamic, but also lets you get a little deeper into that end range. After 30 seconds, I'm just going to hold the stretch just like this for a minute. Easy breathing. All right, we're cooling down. We're not working. Good. After 30 seconds, I'm going to get into my next. For our third stretch, we're going to move down to our hip flexors and our quads. So I'm going to do a biphasic stretching from a couch stretch. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna shift my knee forward over my toe, a hip flexor on the quad. I'm just gonna get a nice stretch here, just a couple inches. But after 30 seconds, I'm gonna come back, really focusing on the quad as I shift back my heel towards my butt. Got a nice upright posture. Relax breathing. After I get 30 seconds of that static stretch, I'm just gonna switch legs. I use the pad just to protect my knee on these rubber floors. And make sure I've got a 90-degree angle at the ankle and the hip. Just gonna oscillate. And keeping this dynamic. Every time just push them a little farther back. Pushing that end range of motion. After 30 seconds, I'm gonna come into a nice static stretching position. I'm relaxed. You know, I'm not sitting here gritting my face. I have a good moderate tension through the quad. But I'm going to get to my 30 seconds. Then we're going to get to our stretch is going to come from a triangle pose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just a nice bent leg. I'm going to keep my feet on the floor. And I'm going to straighten that front leg, keeping my hands down as much as I can. You'll feel a nice comfortable tension. But I'm just going to oscillate through that range of motion. Just slight bend in that front knee. 30 seconds, and then I'm going to get to my end range of motion. I'm just going to hold a nice stretch here. Our fifth dynamic stretch, we're going to move down into a pigeon position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down into a quadruple stance. I'm going to take my right leg back. I'm going to swing my left leg under my body. And I'm going to come up into a pigeon stretch. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm just going to use my arms, that back toe, I'm going to rock forward and back, finding a good depth of motion. Good. Just slight oscillations after 30 seconds. I'm just going to sit back here, get a nice stretch. I know some people are really flexible, they like to be relaxed, come down to the floor, rest their head right on their hands. We're going to hold this for 30 seconds. Now we're going to switch sides. So what I'm going to do is put my left leg back, right flank's going to come under the body, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to use those hands just to push a little deeper. I can push up through that back toe. Just small oscillations. Then after 30 seconds I'm going to come down, hold that pigeon stretch, staying nice and relaxed. After 30 seconds I can come up. The last biphasic stretch we're going to do is just going to be a normal calf stretch on the wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and plant my back foot, keep that heel on the ground. I'm just going to come forward, bending that knee, getting as far into that stretch as possible, pushing back a little bit, just for 30 seconds. When I get a nice end range of motion established, I'm going to hold it for 30 seconds. Then when I'm done, I'm going to switch sides and do the same thing. Keeping that heel of the back foot planted, finding that full range of motion. And then after 30 seconds, I'm just going to hold it there. If you have problems with the soleus, your bottom of the calf, you can do the same thing. All we're going to do is with that back leg, is we're going to take it from a straight leg to a bent leg position. Keep that back leg bend, work that soleus. I can come into a static stretch. And then I'll switch sides. So that's it for our biphasic stretching. You'll probably feel nice and relaxed. Your muscles are loose. And we got all our work in. Thanks for joining me here at Forever Fit. And I hope to see you again.